After being reborn, the first thing I did was change my college preferences. In my past life, I had clung to Ethan like he was my anchor, blindly following him to University B, sacrificing my own future for a boy who saw me as nothing but a burden to be shed. This time, I chose University A instead. Ethan liked to stay on campus during the weekends, which made it easy. I stayed locked in my room, studying until my fingers ached and my eyes burned. When he brought Emily home, I quietly moved out. No arguments, no confrontations, just silence, cold and final. In this new life, I would not waste a single second on people who pretended their betrayal was virtue. Before the college entrance exam in my previous life, Ethan had accused me of being a thief. I had known it wasn't true. He had known it wasn't true. But the accusation served a purpose. It cleared a path for him and Emily to walk into their new relationship untainted. Clean and honest. That's what they said. What a joke. What kind of honesty begins with a lie? I remembered the moment I stared at my mock exam results, reborn, trembling, on the edge of collapse. In my last life, the scandal broke me. Just days before the college entrance exams, I was publicly accused of stealing Emily's watch. My mind fractured under the weight of humiliation and betrayal, and I performed disastrously in the final exam. My dreams shattered overnight. But now, I was different. When I submitted my new preference list, my teacher looked at me in surprise. "Didn't you always say you wanted to go to the same university as Ethan?" At the mention of his name, a familiar image flickered in my mind. His tall frame, his protectiveness, his perfect mask. Everyone always thought I wasn't good enough for him. That I was just the charity case his family took in out of duty. The daughter of his father's comrade, in arms. The girl they clothed, fed, and educated. But none of them knew what he was like behind the curtain. I smiled faintly. I don't think that way anymore. I believe university suits me better now. My teacher was silent for a beat. Then he patted my shoulder with approval. In my past life, my scores consistently surpassed University A's threshold. But I gave it up, for Ethan. And that was the price I paid for loyalty, public disgrace, a ruined future, and a heart cracked open by the very people I trusted. I still remember the scene. Emily, face streaked with fake tears, pulling me aside before a crowd. "Claire, I know your family isn't wealthy. You must think I look down on you. But this watch. It's from Ethan. I've always been careful with it. Please just return it to me." Her voice trembled as she collapsed into Ethan's arms. The perfect image of the wronged girl. Ethan turned to me, jaw clenched in righteous fury. "Claire, when you were bullying Emily, did you even think about your background? It's not a crime to be poor. But letting poverty breed evil, that's unforgivable." Then he offered a benevolent smile. "We'll forget it happened." And just like that, the crowd turned. Whispers became jeers. Contempt gleamed in every eye. They weren't interested in facts, they wanted spectacle. In this life, they will not have mine. This time there will be no breakdown, no collapse, no ruined exam. I will rise in silence. And when they look for me, when they realize I am no longer there, they'll find nothing but a locked door and a legacy I built without them. I smiled bitterly at the boy who had once promised to protect me for a lifetime. How did he become this way? My chest felt like a boulder had crushed it. My heart aches profoundly. I hadn't stolen the watch. How could I return it? They had no concrete evidence against me, so that they couldn't do much at the time. However, I never expected Ethan, who had always been gentle with me, to lock me in a room under the guise of teaching me a lesson. While his parents were away, Emily complained about our public argument, claiming it embarrassed her. Ethan assured me that I had always been able to endure so that a bit of pain wouldn't matter. Emily, being delicate, could not handle public gossip, he said. That night, the door stayed locked. My nerves had finally snapped. The following day was the college entrance exam. I pounded on the door and windows, screaming for help, but the only response was my despairing voice echoing throughout the vast empty villa. I grabbed a glass off the desk and smashed it against the window. Without hesitation, the shards slashed into my flesh, and the pain overwhelmed me. By the dim light of dawn, I sat there shivering in the cold. I endured the agony and managed to finish the 3-day exam, but my mental state was destroyed. I did worse than ever and ended up at a mediocre university. In the end, I died in a car accident caused by Emily. I despised those two with every fiber of my being. But now I'd been given another chance. I was reborn 3 months before the college entrance exams. This time, I could change everything. Back at Ethan's house, I started packing my belongings. Ethan's parents gave him this villa as a wedding gift. Olivia had always treated me well, but there was no longer a chance for me and Ethan. The warmth I felt for Olivia had to be buried deep within my heart. As I packed my belongings, I started drafting a new study plan. When I looked at the photograph of my dream university hanging on the wall, hope filled my heart. As long as I remained consistent and performed well on the exams, I would soon leave this place for good. That evening, I made dinner as usual. Ethan returned as expected, Emily trailing behind him, and Claire chirped sweetly. Ethan invited me over again for dinner. You don't mind, right? Emily was small. Her oval-shaped face is highlighted by fair skin. She appeared exceptionally pure and delicate. She wore her white school uniform. She made herself at home, squealing in delight. When she saw the dishes I had prepared, she immediately summoned Mrs. Smith, the housekeeper, to serve them. She received a bowl of porridge. Ethan and Mrs. Smith each received one, but I received none. When I returned from the toilet, the three of them had already sat down at the table, chatting and laughing like a family. Emily took one bite and promptly spit it out. I am allergic to peanuts, she exclaimed as tears welled up in her eyes. I leaned against the doorframe and watched Ethan pour her a bowl of soup. He didn't realize until it was too late that it was also made with peanuts. Emily left the house crying, muttering to Ethan, Claire probably doesn't like me. I'm not coming back anymore. Ethan led her to the door and returned frowning. I ignored him and settled down to eat. You did it on purpose, he spoke in a confused tone. Then, as if attempting to justify himself, he added, Emily's family is struggling. I bring her here to enjoy a good meal, just as my family did for you all those years. I didn't respond. Ethan sighed and shook his head, as if to admit defeat. If you don't like her, I can take her to a restaurant. Next time. A week later, Ethan remained on campus to tutor Emily. Meanwhile, I brought a large stack of practice exams to the library. Previously, Ethan would stay at home and study with me. I'd patiently guided him through each problem. But now he was focused on assisting his new flame in preparing for their future together at University B. As I packed my books, I discovered certificates of achievement. Ethan and I had earned it over the years. I couldn't help but wonder if he'd be able to maintain his grades while using study sessions to avoid their dates. I chose to take my certificates. My hard-earned accomplishments were packed into my bag. These honors were earned solely through my efforts, not by Ethan or his family. I bundled them up and left the villa for the old apartment complex where I grew up. It was far out in the suburbs, but it brought back memories of my childhood. I carefully cleaned my father's military plaque, which he had received posthumously for his bravery. Dad, I whispered. I promised to do whatever it takes to achieve my goals. With just over 2 months until the exams, I could see freedom ahead. After that, I'd leave Ethan's family for good. Ethan arrived home late that night. The dinner I had prepared remained untouched. I ate in school, he explained casually, but the faint scent of gardens on him suggested otherwise. He'd eaten with Emily. He probably knew that bringing her back would not go well, so they ate out. Before he returned, I silently motioned for Mrs. Smith to clear the dishes before going to my room. The only items remaining in the room were some seasonal clothing and study materials. I packed the clothes into my suitcase and saved the rest for later. I packed the rest of my belongings after Ethan left for one of his dates next week. Because I was determined to create a better future, I dedicated all of my time to studying. Others wasted their days flirting and chatting. I poured all of my energy into my review sessions. I was deep in my work. When I heard a knock at the door, I knew it was Ethan. My father had saved his father's life on the battlefield while sacrificing his own. Because of this, Ethan has always treated me with respect. He would never enter my room without my consent. What did I ask? I didn't want him to see that I was packing. He hesitated before stating, the engagement banquet is being prepared. How about the third day following the exams? Our parents' wishes had planned our previous engagement. Right after the college entrance exams, I looked at my suitcase and responded indifferently. There is no rush. Let us talk. Once Olivia returned, Ethan stood silently outside my door for a long time before walking away. When I heard Ethan's footsteps fade away, I let out a breath. I hadn't realized I was holding and resting my head on the desk. I felt relieved, given Ethan's age. Olivia tended to trust his judgment more. Olivia took me in because our parents had made a marriage pact with outsiders. I was already considered a member of Ethan's family, and the engagement was simply a formality. Furthermore, Ethan was attractive, excelled in his studies, and treated me well. It was no secret that my heart had always belonged to him. Everyone could see it. I owed the Johnson family for raising me all these years, but I had already paid them back in full through teaching. Ethan worked tirelessly, even in my previous life. When he falsely accused me and locked me in a room, destroying my future, that was enough restitution in this life. I owe them nothing. I was determined to forge my path that weekend. To my surprise, Ethan did not remain on campus. He even brought breakfast. My favorite ate treasure porridge on fried dough sticks. It was something he hadn't done in years. I scrolled through vocabulary words on my phone as I sat quietly at the table. The only sounds were the occasional clinks of utensils on bowls. I'll stay at home with you to study today. Ethan suddenly spoke, breaking the silence. I looked at him, surprised, and shook my head. Don't you want me to keep you company? He inquired, frowning slightly. You'll spend the weekend cooped up in your room. I was about to make an excuse to decline when the doorbell rang. Emily's voice came through the intercom. Ethan, she called cheerfully. She stood at the door with 2 breakfasts in her hands. As soon as the door opened, she tilted her head up and smiled at Ethan, completely blocking my view of him. Why are you here? I asked you to wait for me, Ethan said, shifting slightly to shield her from my gaze. Emily peeked cautiously from behind his chest. Sorry, Claire, she spoke softly. I was concerned that he might skip breakfast, so I went to find him. I stared at her face, which was innocent and pure, just like in my previous life. Whatever she said, it always triggered Ethan's protective instincts. When Ethan learned that she was willing to go hungry just to wait for him, he quickly followed her out, breaking his earlier promise to stay just to keep me company. He had intended to meet her all along. I scoffed to myself, relieved that I didn't have to come up with an excuse to pack my belongings and leave. I took out my phone and quickly checked my moving checklist. I dragged my already packed clothes and belongings out of the house and hired a moving company to transport them to my new flat. When everything arrived, I organized my belongings and smiled at the photos of the modest house. Dad, I whispered. Your daughter is capable of living independently and without the need for assistance. I spent the entire day studying at home, only returning to Ethan's house in the evening. The intense pace of exam preparation caused the days to fly by late at night, illuminated by streetlights. It was always my shadow, bent over books, seeking knowledge. Olivia and her husband, Mr. Johnson, returned from their business trip on Friday evening. Claire and Olivia sat quietly on the living room sofa for a long time before releasing a deep sigh. He's just close to another classmate, whereas you and Ethan have been engaged since childhood. If he refuses to marry you, I will make sure he regrets it. Your parents trusted us to take care of you before they died. Moreover, your father saved our family. You don't need to worry about anything. When I didn't respond, they exchanged looks before shaking their heads in frustration. You're extremely stubborn, Olivia finally said, with a sigh. Okay, we'll cancel the engagement banquet. I listened silently as Olivia called to cancel the banquet. She simply informed the event company to withdraw the reservation and refund the deposit. The engagement banquet, which was still in the planning stages, had passed, prompting a small sigh of relief. I stood up and made a deep bow to both of them. I knew they meant well. Ethan was widely regarded as the ideal student and son. Even his parents couldn't understand why I was so adamant about canceling the engagement, which I couldn't explain. I couldn't tell them that in my previous life, I was betrayed by those closest to me, stumbled on college entrance exams, had my entire life turned upside down, and eventually died in a car accident caused by jealousy and malice. After the engagement was called off, Olivia and Mr. Johnson assured me that I would always be their daughter. Even without a formal arrangement, I did not inform them that I intended to leave their family after the exams. For now, I was determined to accompany them for the next 2 months. In the days leading up to the exams, Olivia insisted on driving me to school while clutching my hand tightly. Her voice trembled with emotion as she encouraged me to study hard and promised to visit me frequently. When I unpacked my belongings at school, I discovered she had slipped a wad of cash into my bag. Tears streamed down my face. Olivia must have noticed that my room was gradually emptying, but she chose not to confront me. Instead, she allowed me to carry out my plans, acting as a quiet guardian. I opened my suitcase to retrieve some clothing. I suddenly heard Ethan's voice at the door. Is Emily still upset? I turned to find Ethan standing there. His face was visibly startled when he realized it was me. Claire, what are you doing here? He asked, flustered. I motioned to the room next door. Your room is over there. Emily peeked out as the door to the neighboring room opened. She gave me an awkward smile before heading back inside. I looked at Ethan, and guilt was written all over his face. After a moment of hesitation, he stated that Emily's home situation is not ideal, and she lives far from school. With the upcoming exams, I thought it would be easier for her to stay here. Because our flat is close to campus, I didn't expect things to escalate to the point where they were sharing a roof and, apparently, a bed. Ethan appeared to sense my silence. After a pause, he said, Okay, why don't you move your stuff into my room? You are welcome to stay there for the time being. I will take the floor. As he spoke, he opened the door to his room and looked around. By the way, what happened to the books in your room? You used to have so many. I grabbed one of my textbooks and pursed my lips. So, this villa was his. After all, I didn't care where I stayed as long as I wasn't treated like a guest. I've already finished the books. They were no longer useful, so I disposed of some of them, I said casually, and Ethan frowned. Even if your exams are only 2 days away, you may need those books later. Why should you sell them? I did not respond. Seeing my silence, he continued. How about the engagement? What exactly did my parents say? He placed the book back on the desk, and I responded evenly. They said the timing was off. We will talk about it later. This was the excuse I had agreed on with Olivia and Mr. Johnson to postpone the engagement. I intended to have a proper conversation with him after I had moved all of my belongings out and settled into my new home. Ethan appeared satisfied with the explanation and did not question it. He also gave a light nod and muttered, "All right, if that is the case." Then he stepped out, saying he'd move some things, and I didn't have to worry about it. I examined the room's nearly empty bookshelves. Only a few of the martial arts novels we had read together remained. For a moment, I considered returning them to Ethan, but my thoughts were interrupted by laughter. Outside, Ethan's voice was deep and calm. Emily is playful and ish, while Mrs. Smith is kind and cheerful. I sat back down silently as the three of them appeared to be at ease, as if nothing had changed. Sharing a room with Ethan was already inappropriate if the engagement hadn't been cancelled. But with the college entrance exams only 2 days away, leaving now would only add to the drama. Ethan would undoubtedly make a fuss. I decided to wait until bedtime to set up my spot on the living room couch quietly. After a long day of studying, I wanted to go to bed early. However, Emily, full of energy, was lounging in the living room in a camisole nightgown, drawing Ethan aside to assist her with her questions. Ethan cast a glance at me before leading her upstairs. Nonetheless, their laughter and conversation echoed through the walls, as if they were meant to be heard. Feeling suffocated, I stepped outside to get some fresh air. "Claire, why are you out in the middle of the night? Isn't it the exam? You'll catch a cold soon," said the neighbor from her window. Her concern is genuine. The house was stuffy. I replied with a slight smile. The neighbor whose husband worked in real estate led a comfortable life. She frequently brought me small souvenirs from her travels abroad and treated me kindly. She leaned over the balcony. Her tone exclaimed, "Ethan, I swear, he seems so devoted. But look at him now, bringing some other girl into the house right before your big exams, and you, why don't you put him in his place? You are too nice. The two of you are practically engaged, but you're ignoring this. If you allow him to get away with it now, he will believe he can walk all over you in the future." She continued her tirade, but I only half listened. Ethan had told everyone that I suggested bringing Emily home because of her low-income family situation and long commute, claiming that I wanted to help her focus on her studies. I let out a bitter laugh to myself. Ethan was simply trying to save face by using me as a shield to deflect criticism. But, since I was leaving soon, I didn't want to waste energy on pointless debates. I nodded politely but said nothing. The next morning, I left for school early. The neighbor saw me off and urged me to talk some sense into Ethan. I simply smiled and waved goodbye. When I arrived in the classroom, there weren't many students present. I took out my notebook of mistakes and went over a few questions. But then I noticed something that did not belong to me. A shiny, conspicuous watch was placed in plain view, pushing my books to the corner of the desk. "Ah, Ethan. My watch is gone." Emily's panicked voice rang out as she frantically searched her bag, her eyes glistening with unnoticed tears. The watch was worth nearly 10,000. I held the watch in my hand, intending to return it, but the moment Emily noticed it, a glint appeared in her eyes. She suddenly lunged at me and slapped my hand hard. The watch flew out and landed on the floor with a clatter, catching everyone's attention. The murmurs started immediately. "Doesn't Ethan's family raise Claire? How could she steal someone else's belongings when she aspires to marry a wealthy man? A dog's nature cannot change." Emily's voice, soft and teary, joined in. "Ethan, there must be a misunderstanding. Claire must have reasons." Her tone was innocent and considerate. Just as I remembered from my previous life, she always appeared innocent, but her words distorted the truth and cast doubt on others' minds. Ethan frowned deeply. "Claire, are you aware that stealing is a crime? You could go to jail for this." Emily's friends quickly joined in. "Emily, why do you defend her? Someone like that is probably looking at more than just your watch, and she must be trying to mess with you on purpose by pulling this right before the exams." Another student expressed disdain. "She's just jealous that Emily and Ethan are so close, but that doesn't justify breaking the law. She could jeopardize her entire future." Additional voices joined in. You never really know anyone, do you? We should simply call the police. I stood silently amid the accusations, the chaos swirling around me, and felt the all too familiar sting of betrayal. I picked up the shattered glass, covered watch, and said, "Kay, call the cops." After all, the only person who truly understands how this watch ended up in my drawer is the one responsible. Barefoot does not mind wearing shoes, I thought. Emily's face paled as she clung to Ethan's sleeve. "No, don't call the cops," she stammered. "That would not be good for Claire. She's also about to take her exams." However, her friends were not so kind. "Emily, you have a soft heart. One of them said that people like her will simply take advantage of your kindness." "I have a soft heart." I gave out a bitter laugh. Then I raised my hand and slapped Emily across the face, the sharp sound echoing throughout the room, leaving her stunned and speechless. "Pathetic, aren't you, Emily? Do you not realize what you've done? Do you need me to air out all of your dirty deeds so you can be satisfied?" When Ethan noticed her cheeks swell, he immediately pulled her into his arms. "Claire, what is wrong with you? Have you lost your mind?" "I lost my mind." I laughed bitterly. "That is an impressive sum. She's the one accusing me of stealing just before the most important exam of my life. Do you want the truth? Check the security cameras. They will tell you everything." Some students who had previously remained silent began to speak up. "Okay, let's just check the cameras. That will clear things up." Ethan's expression darkened, but he muttered, "Claire, there's no reason to deny it. I can pay for the watch." I stepped back and sneered, "Do you think I did it? Ethan, you have known me for years. Do you genuinely believe I am that kind of person?" He hesitated, his fingers twitching slightly as if to reconsider his assumptions. But then the notice returned. The security cameras had conveniently gone out of order. I had no way to prove my innocence, and the watch was eventually handed over to the principal. The teacher, aware of the watch's high value, summoned me to the office. Ethan appeared unexpectedly and announced that Emily had decided not to press charges. The Johnsons' wealth and influence were undeniable. Even the principal could not ignore Ethan's words. The teacher appeared troubled, but had no choice but to return the watch. Emily, of course, put on another dramatic performance, crying for over an hour while Ethan consoled her, appearing completely absorbed in her tears, and paying no attention to anyone else. Later that evening, Ethan came to see me. "Claire," he began, his tone as if he wanted to argue. I sat down and waited for him to speak. He hesitated, his face stiff and uncomfortable. "I will sleep on the couch tonight," he finally spoke, and I remained silent. He paused again, clearly unable to contain what he wanted to say. "Emily is upset," he proceeded. "She cried all afternoon. Couldn't you have just left her be? There are only a few days until the exams. You need to be so petty." I let out a cold laugh that appeared to catch him off guard. He probably expected me to become enraged, perhaps even start defending myself. Instead, my calm demeanor seemed to irritate him more. "Fine," I replied, smiling faintly. "Whatever you say." This unexpected response caused him to falter. For a moment, he appeared uneasy, as if something was slipping out of his grasp. In my previous life, I followed Ethan like a shadow, laughing only when he laughed and afraid to cry if he was upset. Looking back, I feel like a fool in this life. I knew I would keep my distance. Ethan did not expect my easy agreement. His expression flickered with panic, as if he sensed something slipping away but couldn't grasp it. The following day, I returned to my old flat earlier than planned. I took all of my documents with me just in case. That night, I sat at my desk, reviewing my mistake book. Halfway through, I heard a knock at the door and assumed it was my neighbor. I opened it without much thought while standing. Ethan was wearing only a t-shirt. His face was pale, and his hair disheveled, as if he had been exposed to the cold night wind. My initial thought was that Ethan was still unwilling to let me go. The neighborhood was quiet, with only the occasional stray cat's cry echoing through the darkness. Ethan looked at me intently. His eyes drilled into mine, as if he were looking for answers or trying to break through my resistance. "Come home with me." Ethan spoke in an unusually soft tone. I looked at him calmly and said, "This is my home." He reached out to grab my hand, but I moved back to avoid him. "Claire, don't get mad. Please come home with me," he said, and Ethan lifted one foot as if to step inside and assist me with something, but I quickly pushed the door, which was partially closed. His gaze landed on the item on the edge of my living room table, and his expression changed immediately. "What are these?" I froze for a moment. These were the items I had packed and brought back from the Johnsons' house. I planned to sell some old books. Ethan's face became tense. His expression was a combination of confusion and anger. "You have kept them in such good condition. You've always been responsible with your belongings," he muttered as if talking to himself, and I sighed, but my grip on the door handle was firm. Ethan frowned. You are still upset. Emily was in a hurry and misunderstood you, but she likes that watch. She has always respected and cared about you. She even urged me to find you today, but you are always there." He trailed off. When he noticed how distantly I looked at him, as if he were a stranger, his mouth moved as if to say more, but no words came out. I laughed dryly, with respect. Respect means not getting too close to someone else. When you know your engagement is approaching, respect means not allowing her to sleep in your bed while you're still with someone else. Ethan's expression shifted between disbelief and defensiveness. How cozy. I simply feel sorry for her. Her family situation isn't ideal, so I'm just helping her out a little more. Helping her, I scoffed. Does helping entail sharing a bed? When did giving every girl you feel sorry for a home become your life's mission? Her face paled. His composure was visibly shaken. "Claire, you are angry right now. Let us calm down. Tomorrow, the driver will come to pick you up," he said hastily before turning and stumbling out of the flat. I watched him leave, smiling faintly as I heard his hurried, uneven footsteps fade down the stairs. I closed the door. It's funny how intense anger can make you laugh. How could I have been so blind in my previous life, chasing after someone so foreign to me, to avoid a repeat of my past? I dedicated all of my energy to studying, staying at home, and keeping to myself. Ethan did not try to find me again that evening. I heard a faint rustling outside my door while reviewing mistakes and explanations. Curious. When I turned the handle to check, the clinking sound of a chain echoed. I realized I had been chained up. I couldn't believe Emily dared to pull such a stunt in a different setting, so I grabbed my phone without hesitation. The next morning, our class gathered outside, ready to enter the exam hall. Emily smiled brightly. Her mood was unusually cheerful. "Don't worry, Claire will not be late," she stated with smug confidence. Ethan, standing beside her, gently patted her head. "Good luck with your exams." Emily looks into her doe eyes. His expression softened, but he seemed to remember the cold, detached look I gave him the other day. A hint of unease flickered across his face, an emotion he couldn't shake. As the teacher led the students into the exam hall, my absence became clear. Her heart was bubbling with joy, like an open can of soda. She was already anticipating my absence. Emily exuded joy as she beamed with satisfaction. After the final exam, journalists caught up with Jason. He is a perennial runner, up in the grade rankings for an interview. The host inquired, "You are the first student we have interviewed. Was the exam difficult for you?" Jason smiled confidently into the camera. "It was manageable." Emily, who was walking behind him, responded with a sweet smile. "Jason, this time you'll be first in the grade rankings." Jason's usually polite expression darkened and cracked. "Do not set me up to fail, Emily," he spoke sharply. His tone caused her to flinch. Emily scrambled to explain, "But Claire did not even show up for the exams. If you aren't first, who could be?" Jason did not bother to respond to her. I hadn't returned to the Johnsons' home since the exams began. The next time I saw Ethan was shortly before the celebration banquet. Emily walked in, clinging to Ethan's arm and smiling brightly. When Ethan saw me, he instinctively shook her hand away. Even though his mood seemed off, he quickly recovered and smiled at me. "Claire, it's fine if your exams didn't go well, you can always repeat the year. My cousin runs an excellent preparatory class. The resources are wonderful. I recommend you join based on your previous performance. You'd undoubtedly get into university next year and even as a junior." I pressed my lips together lightly and said, "What a fantastic opportunity. Why not keep it for yourself?" Emily's friends rushed in, furious. "Claire, do not be so ungrateful. Emily is just thinking about what's best for you. Many people take an additional year to study and improve. Don't throw away your future just because you're proud." Their fake sincerity was so evident. It was laughable. Jason happened to walk in at that time and gave them a disapproving look. He told Emily, "You and your pack of dogs are barking nonsense again. On the day of the exams, you cursed someone with failure. Now you are shamelessly suggesting that a top student retake the year. Your audacity is incredible. Do you want me to award you for it?" Emily's face became pale. She looked at Ethan, clearly hoping for support. Ethan frowned, seemingly offended by Jason's mocking tone, and took a step towards me. "Even if you didn't take the exam, simply return home. Ethan said that even if you don't go to college, my family will still take care of you," and that's when I realized. Ethan would always justify Emily's outrageous behavior to him. Her difficult upbringing justified her actions, and others were expected to accommodate her. Something inside of me snapped. Without warning, I slapped Ethan in the face. The sharp sound silenced everyone. Emily froze, NIT craze. Her tears vanished in shock as she took a protective step in front of Ethan. "Why did you hit him? Are you crazy?" she yelled, raising her hand to slap me. But before her hand could land, Jason grabbed her wrist and shoved her heart, causing her to fall into Ethan's arms. "I've seen enough, a little discipline wouldn't hurt." Jason replied coldly, his smile more of a sneer. Ethan's expression darkened as he walked over to me and grabbed my wrist tightly. "You're joining me today. We need to resolve this once and for all." Pain shot through my arm, and I stumbled forward, nearly colliding with him. I instinctively prepared to kick him, but Jason was faster. His fist struck Ethan's jaw, causing him to stumble backward. Jason took a protective step in front of me, shielding me with his arm. "Are you blind? She does not want to go with you. Then back off. Go to the hospital and have your eyes checked." Jason spoke calmly but with a warning tone. Ethan clutched his red jaw, his face a mixture of rage and frustration. His glare bore into me as if he were attempting to calm the storm brewing inside him. Emily quickly intervened to ease the tension. "Ethan, you shouldn't fight over someone like her. It is not worth it," she said, desperately tugging on his arm. A few classmates who arrived early began to notice the commotion and turned to watch. Ethan's expression changed several times. His chest rose and fell with controlled emotion. Finally, he turned to me and spoke in a low, deliberate tone. "Claire, I'm very disappointed in you. I told Ethan that after everyone left." I stood there for a moment to calm my emotions. Jason looked at me with concern on his face. I shake my head. "It's just that I didn't have the opportunity to kick him earlier. You beat me to it." "What a shame." Jason remained silent for a moment before bursting into hearty laughter. "You haha. I was surprised that I did not attend the celebration banquet." Finally, Jason noticed my reluctance to deal with Ethan and Emily and suggested we go to the river to watch the fireworks. Instead, parents celebrating the end of exams had purchased fireworks, and we spent 3 hours watching the colorful bursts illuminate the cold night sky. As the final pieces fell, glittering and fading, the night became quieter. Jason turned to me, his profile sharp in the dim light, and leaned in to whisper near my ear. "Why not consider somebody else for a change?" I remained silent, pretending not to hear. My current plans for the future did not include love. My heart was devoid of men. I thought I needed solitude to grow stronger. The day the results were announced, gossip spread like wildfire among the students. Emily was taken away by police shortly after checking her scores, and images of her being escorted into a police car flooded every group chat at the same time. News of my first place ranking in the grade spread quickly. Just as quickly, some classmates from my exam hall approached. "I told you I noticed someone sitting in her seat. You all insisted she hadn't taken the test." "Yes, I saw her too." Another person joined in. "She took the test and got into university, and I'm so proud to be in the same class as Claire. It is a dream come true." The tide of public opinion shifted dramatically. Videos of Emily bragging to the host about Jason becoming the top-ranked student resurfaced and are now being mocked online. The backlash was swift and merciless. Emily was pale with rage when she realized the tables had turned completely in my favor after being bailed out with Ethan's family money. She fainted after seeing a screenshot of my top-ranking scores and had to be hospitalized on the eve of the exams. Emily had locked me in my old flat building under the guise of convincing me she had manipulated Ethan into giving her my address to disrupt my focus. I hadn't made a fuss about it then. Instead, I quietly filmed her from the window to ensure I had proof. I waited for the moment when she would soar to imaginary heights, only to crash back down to reality. In this second chance at life, I couldn't allow her actions to go unpunished. Once in college, I balanced part-time work with my studies and consistently finish at the top of my class. I occasionally heard rumors about Emily and Ethan's breakup. Emily let slip details about the watch during a conversation with her friends, locking me in the room by accident. Ethan heard everything. He'd been shocked. His perception of Emily was utterly shattered. He confronted her, demanding to know why she had pretended to be innocent for years while blaming everything on me. For years, he thought I was a petty, mean-spirited bully. The stark contrast between what he had thought and the truth caused him to doubt his judgment. It was winter when Ethan realized he had made every mistake. Emily cried and begged him for 2 months, but all she got was a major breakup. "Settlement has occurred. Do not let me see you again." Ethan was always so self-centered, putting himself before everyone else. Meanwhile, Jason, who had also gotten into university, continued to make his presence known. He would sit beside me in class, accompany me to meals, or wait outside my classroom. After exams today, there were fireworks near the river, 5 kilometers from campus. Jason had invited me, and I agreed it was time to address our dynamic and clarify our relationship. As the year came to an end, I put on my winter coat and buried my face in a thick beige scarf. I unexpectedly ran into Ethan at the campus gate. His face was pale from the cold, and he appeared haggard, as if he had been waiting for a long time. When he recognized me, he rushed over and drew me into a tight embrace. I struggled, pounding on his chest, but he refused to let go. He grabbed the back of my head, his voice urgent, and said, "Claire, I know you're angry with me." Ethan's voice was heavy with regret, "But I'm glad because it shows you still care." I didn't respond. Instead, I raised my knee and drove it directly into his stomach, pushing him away. "Go home, Ethan. Stop acting wildly." Just as I finished speaking, Jason arrived and noticed the scene. He pushed Ethan aside and instinctively stood protectively in front of me. "Don't you have enough of haunting her like a ghost?" Jason snapped. Ethan's expression darkened as his rage erupted. Seeing Jason reminded him of the scene before the celebration banquet, which fueled his anger. Jason and Ethan both growled. "Are you coveting what is mine?" He raised his fist, as if to strike. I stepped forward and stopped him before he could go any further. "Ethan, we have nothing to do with one another anymore." When I called his name, Ethan froze in his aggressive posture, causing Claire to falter. He murmured, his voice breaking. "I was wrong. If I had known you were going to cancel the engagement, I would not have let you leave. I would have remained by your side. I misinterpreted you. That is something I have realized now. Let us start over, please." I gave out a cold laugh. "No, Ethan and Jason, let's go." Without hesitation, I grabbed Jason's hand and he responded by gripping my hand, firm and certain. Behind us, Ethan stood frozen, his figure slowly shrinking in the distance, swallowed by the biting wind. From the bridge, he watched us go, his face painted with disbelief. Like he'd just woken up from a dream he thought he was the hero of. The cold wind wrapped around us like a ribbon, but I didn't feel it. All I saw were the bursts of fireworks overhead, colors blooming across the sky, reflecting off Jason's profile. His features were sharp, but the way he looked at me, gentle, steady. After a long silence, his voice finally broke through the night. "Claire, does this mean what I think it does?" I couldn't help but chuckle. "Took you long enough." I opened my mouth to answer, but Jason stopped me. His warm hand gently pressed against my lips. "Let me speak first," he whispered. His eyes locked onto mine, starry and unwavering. "Claire, for the past 3 years you've always been one step ahead of me. In the cafeteria line, in every exam room, and in my heart." He laughed softly. "At first, I told myself it was just admiration. But I know now. I'm just a fool hopelessly in love with you." He looked up at the sky, his nose red from the cold. "I used to watch you cry for Ethan, smile for him, hurt for him. And I hated myself for standing there, secretly wishing for a chance that would never come. Then Emily showed up, and for the first time I felt like I could breathe again." His smile was quiet, bittersweet. "Riley," he continued, his voice so soft I had to lean in to hear it. "I know you're afraid. Afraid love will distract you, make you weak, break your focus. But what if it made you stronger instead?" He stepped closer, his hand tightening around mine. "So let me carry the sword for you. Just this once. Will you let me?" I stared at him stunned. Could love really be this simple? I took off my gloves slowly, one finger at a time, then placed my bare hand in his. "The job is yours," I whispered, smiling. His composure crumbled into joy. Unfiltered, radiant joy. "Claire," he breathed. Claire, my girlfriend." He laughed, his voice cracking with pure emotion. And under that winter sky, beneath the fading fireworks, I knew this was a beginning. If this ending left you smiling, tearing up, or shouting, "Finally!" don't just sit there. Hit that subscribe button, share the video with your favorite hopeless romantic, and drop a comment. Would lie you have given Jason a chance? Or stayed loyal to the past? I want to hear your story.